Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I hope your day and your week are going very well so far. College football week 8 is officially here, and I have a ton of great picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. We have a ton of great content here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel across multiple sports, college football, NFL, WNBA, MLB, NBA coming up. So much great content, and the best part of it is, guys, all the picks we hand out here are 100% free. With a new week comes a new opportunity to go ahead and make some money. And as per usual, guys, I have a lot, and I mean a lot of picks to go ahead and share with you guys. But first, before we dive into this week's picks, a quick little recap of how we did last week. And guys, you just knew that we were due. Coming off a catastrophic week 6, we bounced back in a big way last week in week 7. 8-4-2 overall, really strong performance. We did tail off a little bit in the later slate, but overall a really solid week 7 performance, and like I said, was much needed. Our overall record improves to 36-44-2. We still have some work to do to go ahead and clean that record up, but we have a new week, some new opportunities to go ahead and make some more money and clean up that record a little bit here in week 8. But guys, you know we can't have a big cashing week like we had last week, not celebrate, so we're going to bring out the money gun. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! We're feeling good. The vibes are strong. We made some money last week. Let's go ahead and make some more money this week. College football week 8 picks coming at you right now. All right, guys, our first pick in this week's slate, we are targeting the Florida State-Duke game here on Friday night, 7 p.m. kickoff. I'm going Florida State team total here under 20.5 points. Now, look, it's a little juiced here, minus 155 odds on DraftKings, but it's just such a great pick. I have to go ahead and give it out. Even though it is a little juiced, it's not a bad parlay pick, or if you're willing to put a little extra money down, I'm telling you guys, it's worth it. Florida State has cashed this line at an 83% hit rate so far this season. 5 of 6 games they cashed this under here, averaging just 14.83 points per game. Not since the season opener versus Georgia Tech and Ireland have they actually gone over 20.5 points. And of all the matchups to go ahead and cash the over, this one just doesn't feel like the one. Look at this Duke defense. It is tough. The 22nd best scoring defense in the nation, giving up just 17.5 points per game this season. They're ranked very high in a lot of key categories. This is a top 10 passing defense in college football. Top 15 in pass rush, 4th in quarterback hits, 14th in sacks, top 50 in turnovers, forced. Across the board, really solid numbers here. And of course, Florida State, we know their struggles this year. This team has the 131st scoring offense in college football. They're outside the top 80 in both passing yards and outside the top 100 in rushing yards. 134th in rushing yards, just 58 rushing yards per game for this Florida State team. Now, they are coming off a bye, which Mike Norvell historically is pretty good off of, and they did make the quarterback change with Brock Glenn. He has an extra week here to go ahead and prepare. But like I said, it's not a good spot for Florida State here. This Duke defense is solid in general. Even in general, this would be a little bit of a tougher matchup for Florida State in terms of the defensive matchup, but Florida State just can't score this year. Great defensive team here in Duke. I just don't see a path for Florida State to score a ton of points. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe Mike Norvell turns around, but Florida State's now 1-5 this year. It just every week we keep telling ourselves, maybe this is the week it turns around. Maybe this week it turns around. Maybe we just have to accept this is what Florida State is this year. It's a lost season, in my opinion. Obviously, at this point, you're just trying to win as many games as you can, but scoring over 21 points in this matchup, I just don't see it happening for Florida State. So give me the under here, 20.5 points. All right, guys, next up, we have another Friday night football bet. We're going with the Oregon-Purdue game, 8 p.m. kickoff. We're going with the over here, 59.5 points. The spread in this game is a little too rich for my blood. Oregon's a 28-point favorite after their big win against Ohio State last week, which, by the way, we did call a little bit there. I think it's a potential letdown spot here for the Ducks, but this is a matchup where I think a lot of points should be scored. Obviously, we know how good Oregon's offense is. They are a top 30 scoring offense in the nation. A lot of, top 15 in passing yards. Top 100 in pretty much every category, and top 50 in a lot of key categories. And this Purdue defense is pretty awful. 130th scoring defense in the nation, 80th in passing yards allowed, 127th in rushing yards allowed. Make no mistake, Oregon should do most of the heavy lifting in carrying this total. But why I'm rocking with this over instead of the line here is I think Purdue showed some fight last week. This team obviously has been horrific. We bet against them a lot this season. But they actually had a really good game against Illinois, who is a top 25 ranked team. They did end up losing that game 50-49, but there was a 99-point total in that game. Illinois is a pretty solid defensive team. And the second half, Purdue looked the best they've looked all season long. And really what I'm banking on is that version of Purdue coming off a really big game where I know they fell up short, but they played Illinois really tough. I'm expecting that kind of version of Purdue to come up here big against Oregon. Although the metrics do show that Oregon is a top 30 run defense, they've actually sneaky had a pretty bad run defense this year. It's kind of mid, I should say. Maybe not bad, maybe mid. I know the metrics show that they're actually pretty decent in the run defensive category, but if the eye test shows they're okay. They give up some big plays on the ground. Purdue, obviously, they're only ranked 72nd in rushing yards, but it is the strength of this offense. I think Purdue could pull off a couple of big runs, get some scores here. Again, make no mistakes. Oregon's going to do most of the heavy lifting here, but seeing what I saw from Purdue last week, I don't think it's crazy that they can go ahead and score at least a couple touchdowns on Oregon to at least drive this over to cash. So I like the over here, 59.5 points. All right, guys, next up we got Auburn at Missouri. 12 p.m. kickoff. We're now moving on to the Saturday slate. I'm going with Auburn here, plus 5.5 points. I know we bet on Missouri last week. A really big win against, almost said Boston College. A really big win against UMass last week, which we did obviously predict. Coming off that embarrassing Texas A&M loss, Missouri obviously bounced back. They're at home, and obviously taking Auburn might seem like the wrong pick, but I think Auburn is not getting the credit they deserve. Now, look, Auburn, a lot of losses on their schedule this year, but they've had a really, really, really brutal schedule. Look who they played so far. I mean, 3 games in a row, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Georgia. You know, they're weaker games. You could like Cal and New Mexico. Yeah, those are weaker opponents, but they've had a pretty tough schedule, opposed to Missouri, who's had a kind of cupcake schedule, minus the Texas A&M game. I mean, the data shows look at the right side of the screen here. Auburn is tied for the 46th toughest schedule in college football so far this year. Missouri tied for 84th. Although a lot of losses here for Auburn, they've actually a couple mistakes away from being a really solid record with some really nice wins on the resume. They made some tough mistakes on offense, some rough turnovers in some key areas in those games. But I do like Auburn here to at least cover the spread of 5.5 points here. Look, I like this Missouri team a lot, but I think we're still all in love with the version of Missouri we saw last year. And of course, I bet on Missouri a lot last season. We have to now admit to ourselves this version of Missouri this year, it's just not as good as the one last year. They're still a good team. They're still ranked. We still should honor them as a good team, but I don't think they're as good as they were last year, and I think the games so far have shown it. Even having the weaker schedule they've had some really rough scares there in games against teams like Boston College, like Vanderbilt. I just can't get the Texas A&M loss out of my head here. SEC battle, I know they're at home here, but Auburn, this is a top 50 scoring defense in the nation. And offensively, they're okay, but Auburn has a top 30 passing attack in college football. And again, Missouri, all their numbers in both defense and offense look really good. But again, who have they played? Besides Texas A&M, take that one game out of the data. UMass, Vanderbilt, Boston College, Buffalo, Murray State. They just haven't played an impressive schedule. And you take the A&M game out, which they obviously got eviscerated in. I just can't really, and again, they had some tough ones there. Vanderbilt, close win. Boston College, close win. You know, I just don't trust the Missouri team to cover the spread here. Now, I say they won't win, but I think Auburn, this team is tough. They've had some tough challenges here. I know they're on the road again, but I think Auburn here, sneaky good spot to go ahead and bet them here at plus 5.5. Next up, you guys are probably going to hate this pick. The public obviously is all over Indiana here. We're going Nebraska, Indiana, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the Cornhuskers here, plus 7. Like I said, the public is all over Indiana. They've been a fun story this year. New coach who's been absolutely rocking it. Cignetti's been impressive, and he gets the people going. He just gets the people going. You know, I mean, everyone. He's a great guy, great coach, great personality. You know, it's hard not to root for Indiana with how likable they are. But I do like the Cornhuskers here. There's a little bit of kind of like what we talked about with Missouri here. Kind of applies to Indiana, where it's like, who have they really played? Indiana is literally flawless against the spread. They've covered this, well, not completely flawless. They didn't cover the spread in week 1, but in terms of this -7 line, they've covered this -7 point spread in every single game this year. And overall against the spread, you see they've now cashed this in 6 consecutive games. 5 consecutive games, excuse me. Eyesight not the best. But the point being, they've been a cover machine this year, but again, who have they played? Northwestern, Maryland, Charlotte, UCLA. Not really impressive matchups. Now, it's not to say Nebraska's had the toughest schedule in the world either, but at least they have a game against Illinois. They played Rutgers. They played Colorado. They have a little bit of a tougher schedule. Neither of these teams are strong schedule, but Nebraska tied for 104. Indiana tied for 124. For both of these teams, it's true. This is their toughest matchup of the season for both sides, really. This game will be probably a low-scoring affair. The under, probably not a bad place to go ahead and bet as well. But I think with Nebraska's defense, a top 10 scoring defense in the nation. I know Indiana's offense has been red hot, but they have not played a defense like Nebraska's. And Matt Rule, these are the kind of spots that he lives for. Coming off a bye week as well. So, I mean, both teams are, but Matt Rule off a bye, the data seems to be pretty solid in his favor here. Again, like the last bet, I'm not saying that Indiana is going to lose this game, but I think Nebraska should be able to keep this game within a touchdown. These are both really solid defenses. I know Indiana has the better offense, but I think Nebraska is just good enough to go ahead and keep this game within a touchdown. So give me the Cornhuskers here, plus 7. Real quick, guys, before we carry on with the rest of the picks, I wanted to give a little plug here to my new Instagram account here, CFB Picks on Instagram. Go ahead and give it a follow. We just started it this week. We do a ton of content here on the Guy Boss Sports YouTube channel, but I'm doing even more content on my Instagram page. I'm doing TikTok videos, Instagram Reels. We're giving some extra parlays, some extra picks over there for free, of course, on my Instagram. I will never charge for picks. Let that be known. But I would really appreciate if you guys go ahead and give it a follow. Again, I'm giving out more content. Yesterday, for Thursday Night Football, we did give out a 3-leg parlay, which cashed plus 248. I also gave the Broncos minus 2.5. So both those picks I gave out, those were exclusive to my Instagram, and both picks cash. So if you were following me yesterday, you want some money. It's extra content, and all you guys have to do is go ahead and hit that follow button. And to incentivize it just a little bit, I'm doing a little giveaway. This is through all my videos all weekend long, so the contest winners will be selected on Monday's video. And the rules are simple. Go follow me on Instagram, again, at CFB Picks. Follow me on Instagram and comment on the first picture. The first picture I have posted, which is me, my face, my ugly face, with a red background. Go ahead, find that picture and comment LFG. Let's fucking go. LFG, and two random commenters will be selected to win $20 Amazon gift cards free. You guys can win free money just for simply following me on Instagram. And again, if you're following me on Instagram, I'm giving out winners constantly. So go ahead and follow me on Instagram again. Comment LFG on the first post on my Instagram page. And on Monday, 2 lucky commenters will be selected to win free $20 Amazon gift cards. All right, guys, next up, we're targeting the Miami-Louisville game, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the over here, 59.5 points in this matchup. It seems like a pretty good spot here. Look at Miami so far this year. Overs have been cashing at a very high rate. This line in particular, an 83% hit rate so far this year. The only game so far this year Miami did not cash this over, back in week 1 versus the Florida Gators, 41-17. Pretty close miss. Literally missed by like 1 or 2 points. You look at overall, you see the over and then one push there. But overall, the overs have been cashing all year long for Miami. And for Louisville, the numbers aren't as good, but still pretty solid. On this 59.5 point line, you see a 50-50 hit rate. Overall, though, they've cashed the over in 4 out of 6 games this year. So pretty good over cash rate for Louisville as well. Both of these offenses are elite. Louisville, 22nd in scoring. Miami, 1st in scoring. Now, both teams defensively are actually pretty decent in terms of scoring defense, that is. But you see some key areas there. Right there is a key one. If you guys can go ahead and see that. Miami, 1st in passing yards. Louisville, tied for 71st in passing yards allowed. And on the flip side, Louisville, top 20 passing attack in the nation. Miami, 40th in passing yards allowed. So you see some weaknesses there that couldn't be exposed a little bit. I think we're in for a little bit of a shootout here. I think we're in for some high-scoring, high-flying affair here between the Hurricanes and the Cardinals. Give me the over here, 59.5 points. And piggybacking off of that, I'm going to take Miami here -3 as well. And a little bit juiced here, -153 odds on DraftKings. Now, you can go ahead and get it higher. The line actually is at, I think, -5 right now. I'm buying a couple points down to -3. Miami, a couple really close games lately. They started off the season really, really solid, killing teams left and right. And then versus Virginia Tech and versus Cal the last couple weeks, not as impressive. Still wins nonetheless. They're still undefeated, but 1-point win over Cal, 4-point win over Virginia Tech, both comeback wins, by the way. But I do like the spot for Miami here. They are coming off a bye week, so they had an extra week to go ahead and prep for this game. Louisville, not so much. They played last week versus Virginia. They did lose in that one as well. Or win, excuse me. They beat Virginia 24-20. But you see Louisville, kind of a tough little stretch there. You see they play Georgia Tech, Notre Dame, SMU, and Virginia all in a row, 4 weeks straight. And now they come home to go ahead and host Miami off a bye. I think the Hurricanes, again, they had a little bit of a rough couple weeks, but this is still a really good team. Cam Ward, one of the best, if not the best quarterback in college football. I like Miami here -3. The -5 line, I don't know so much about, but -3, I like the Hurricanes there. And speaking of UVA, our next game we're looking at is the Virginia-Clemson game. Again, 12 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm riding with the high hand here. I'm going Clemson -20.5 on the spread. Like I said, I got to keep riding with Clemson. They have been red hot this season. I did fade them against Florida State. I faded them there. But overall, Clemson has been unbelievable this season. They cashed this -20.5 point line in 4 out of 6 games, and they cover the spread in 4 out of 6 games. Really, if you take the Georgia loss, that week 1 season opener versus Georgia, take that loss out of the equation. Clemson, the last 5 weeks or so, have been on an absolute tear. Now, Virginia has not lost by this much at all this year. They haven't been blown out like this at all year long. But To be fair, they also haven't had a tough schedule here. You look at the teams they played. I mean, Wake Forest, Maryland, Coastal, Boston College. Their toughest game of the year was last week versus Louisville. They lost 24-20 in that one. This team's actually been really good covering the spread so far this year, but they're running into a Clemson buzzsaw that I just don't think they can survive here. They just don't match up well at all. Look at Clemson's offense, 12th in scoring. Virginia's defense tied for 52nd in scoring defense, not very good. This team is 112th in passing yards allowed, 260.5 passing yards per game allowed. Going up against a Clemson passing attack that's 25th in the nation. They're throwing for 281 passing yards per game. So really good numbers. They're top 30 in both run and passing yards. Now, they're a little bit better, Virginia is, in the run defense side of things, but their pass defense is atrocious. I think Cade Klubnik and Clemson should absolutely take advantage of that. And on the flip side, Virginia's offense tied for 76th in scoring. They are actually a top 50 passing team in the nation, which, look at Clemson's pass defense, not fantastic, 56th. But overall, Clemson, pretty solid defense, top 50 scoring defense in the nation. I just think Clemson's offense is so good. They should be able to run up the score a little bit here on Virginia. Virginia has not put a team anywhere in the stratosphere of Clemson. This team's red hot. Got to keep riding the hot hand here. Give me Clemson minus 20.5 points. All right, guys, moving on. Our next game, one of the best games of the weekend, maybe one of the best games all year, potentially. We have Alabama at Tennessee, 3:30 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with the Crimson Tide here at minus 2.5. Look, I know Bama on the road at Rocky Top, kind of a tough spot there. And again, Alabama, a couple rough weeks. They came off that big win against Georgia, and since then they lose to Vanderbilt, and then they hang on and barely win versus South Carolina last week. To be fair, though, Tennessee not faring much better. These teams have actually very funny. They both kind of had the same last few weeks. Both teams had a really big win against a pretty solid opponent. You see Alabama, they had beaten Georgia. Tennessee, they beat Oklahoma. Prior to that, both teams kind of had a weaker schedule. Alabama did play Wisconsin. Tennessee, they played NC State, I guess, if you want to consider them a tough matchup. Very similar trajectories. They both come off these big wins, and then Tennessee, a rough upset loss to an SEC opponent in Arkansas. Alabama, a rough upset SEC loss to Vanderbilt. And then the next week, coming off those big losses, Alabama, they win, but a little too close for comfort. Tennessee, the same thing. They beat Florida, but 23-17. They didn't cover the spread. Kind of a close matchup. So both these teams on a very similar trajectory, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to, I just trust Kalen DeBoer, and I trust Alabama just a little bit more than I trust Tennessee. I mean, we can go through the numbers here. You can go through both sides. They both have good numbers on both sides. Alabama's defense not as good as Tennessee's defense, but I do think Alabama's had a little bit of a tougher schedule. Just a little bit. Alabama tied for 28th in schedule, strength of schedule. Tennessee tied for 104. So just a little bit better, a little bit of a tougher schedule for Alabama there. I mean, Tennessee's big win was Oklahoma. Alabama, they beat Georgia. They played Wisconsin. South Carolina, not a slouch team this year. I think the Crimson Tide, a little more battle-tested. Tennessee, obviously, they've been tested very much so in the last few weeks, but it's like, Florida, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I don't know. It's tough. It's going to be a really close game. I think the spread is pretty accurate, being a 2.5-point spread. I just like Alabama a little bit more in this spot. I know it's at Rocky Top. I know it's tough. Look at the head-to-head data, too. The last time these two teams played last year in Tuscaloosa, Alabama beat Tennessee 34-20. Now you're at Rocky Top. Really tough spot here, but I think Alabama is a slightly better team. I think they're a little bit more battle-tested. I trust them a little bit more than I do Tennessee. Give me the Crimson Tide here at minus 2.5. Got a couple picks left, guys. Before we dive into the rest of the picks, a quick word from our partners over at DraftKings. That's right, guys. Guy Boston Sports and DraftKings Sportsbooks have partnered to bring you guys this very special offer. We're making it easy for new customers. If you use the link down below in the description as a new customer and bet $5, you get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Let me say that one more time for the people in the back. As a new customer, you use the link down below and bet $5, you get $200 instantly in bonus bets. We're talking free money here, people. Free money to go ahead and throw on some more picks to go ahead and generate some more money. Stacks on stacks on stacks. That's the goal here. And with these free bonus bets, it can help to go a long way. If you're a new customer and you haven't used DraftKings before, you're really missing out if you don't take advantage of this offer. Like I said, you guys, free bonus bets with NBA coming. We're in full swing with college football and NFL. There's so many sports, so much to bet on. Having those bonus bets definitely come in handy. So go ahead and check out that link down below. Special thank you to DraftKings for partnering with us for today's video. All right, guys, back to the picks. I got 4 picks left in this week's slate. Next up, we got Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, 3:30 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Fighting Irish here, right in the high hand, minus 9.5. The Fighting Irish having a really solid year. If you take the Northern Illinois loss out, which really put a dent in their season, besides the Northern Illinois loss, they've had a really strong campaign. And since the Northern Illinois loss, we've seen some really big wins. 66-7 over Purdue, 28-3 over Miami, Ohio, 49-7 the last time we saw them last week versus Stanford. We're matched up here with a Georgia Tech team that's actually been pretty impressive. Obviously, that week 1 win versus Florida State. They've had a couple other nice wins since then. They're going ahead and beat North Carolina. They beat Duke. A really nice season from the Yellow Jackets thus far, but I don't think they've been tested. And kind of the theme of a couple of these picks, I just don't know how tested they've been. This is by far the toughest team they faced so far this season. You're facing off the Notre Dame team that's hot, and they kind of need to win and win big. Again, there's no conference championship game coming for Notre Dame. So they've got some tough games coming up on the schedule moving forward. Games like these, Notre Dame has to win and take advantage. I like Notre Dame here, -9.5 on the spread. This is by far the toughest defense that Georgia Tech has faced so far this year. Notre Dame top 10 scoring defense in the nation, top 10 in passing yards, top 50 in rushing yards. Now that rushing attack could be a little bit of a question mark there for Notre Dame. Obviously their run defense versus a pretty solid Georgia Tech rushing attack. But again, this Notre Dame defense is the toughest defense Georgia Tech has played thus far this year. And looking on the flip side, Notre Dame top 30 offense in the nation. A lot of key categories. They're really good. 16th rushing offense in the nation. We'll see if Georgia Tech's rushing defense is as good as advertised. The big thing here too is Georgia Tech does not have much of a pass rush at all outside the top 100 in a lot of those key categories. Riley Leonard will have some time to go ahead and sit in the pocket and throw here. I imagine, and again, 83rd passing defense in the nation as well. Notre Dame could go ahead and take advantage of that and throw all over them here. All right, guys, next up, Texas A&M, Mississippi State, 4:15 p.m. kickoff on Saturday. I'm going with A&M here, -16.5. Mississippi State is abysmal. I don't think that's much of a secret from any standard. A&M, look, they're coming off a bye week. The last time we saw them, a really big win versus Missouri. Minus the Notre Dame loss, Texas A&M having a pretty solid season. Mississippi State has gone through an absolute gauntlet here. I mean, it's been pretty bad. There's really no sugarcoating it. Mississippi State has gone through a gauntlet. They played the last 3 games, Georgia, Texas, and Florida. Really tough. So this team is battle-tested, but Mississippi State just 2-7-1 against the spread in the last 10 games at home. This A&M team, top 30 strength schedule, strength of schedule this year so far. So Texas A&M, they're pretty tested as well. I just don't see where Mississippi State's going to keep this game close. This team has the 119th scoring defense in the nation. Texas A&M top 10 rushing offense against the 120th ranked rushing defense in college football. On the flip side, Mississippi State tied for 71st in scoring. Texas A&M top 20 scoring defense in the nation. I just don't really see how Mississippi State stays anywhere within 3 touchdowns of this game. I'm taking A&M here, -16.5. Really solid spot. Next up, guys, LSU, Arkansas, 7 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Razorbacks here, +3. Not going to lie to you guys, it's a pretty tough matchup to go ahead and figure out. LSU obviously busted us a little bit last week. We had Ole Miss last week in that matchup. LSU's the surprise win in overtime, 29-26. You take the opening season loss to USC out of the equation. LSU having a pretty solid year. Since that USC loss, you see, they've on a pretty good run here. Some close games to be sure versus South Carolina, versus Ole Miss, but they're still wins regardless. However, this Arkansas team is battle-tested, and they've been pretty impressive so far this year. They're covering this +3 spread mark at a 67% hit rate overall, and their 83% hit rate overall against the spread. Let me rephrase that because I probably sound a little weird. Arkansas is a 67% hit rate at this +3 line, and overall, in general, against the spread, they're 83% hit rate. So pretty solid team against spread. LSU on the flip side, they are 50% hit rate on this -3 line, but just 33% overall this season. So Arkansas has been a pretty profitable team. Been betting on Arkansas. The only game they didn't cover the spread was versus UAB, -22.5. They did not cover the spread in that one. But overall, this Arkansas team has been a cash cow, and they've been able to hang tight with some of these teams. They just a 5. They actually beat Tennessee. Hung tight with Texas A&M. They beat Auburn. So a really good run there for Arkansas. And they're at home and coming off a bye week, hosting an LSU team coming off an emotional overtime victory against Ole Miss last week. Could be a potential letdown spot here for LSU for a nice rested Arkansas team at home. I like the Razorbacks here. I'm also still not sold on LSU's defense. They're definitely better than they were last year, but this defense still overall not that impressive. I mean, it's better, but still not great. 101st in the nation passing yards allowed. This is a top 25 passing offense in Arkansas. They also have a pretty good job running the football. And on the flip side here, Arkansas top 30 defense in the nation. I mean, this is a pretty solid defense. Yes, their pass defense needs some work there. We could have a shootout on our hands here. I just think Arkansas is good enough to at least keep this within a field goal and maybe win outright here. It's tough. This was a bit of a coin flip game for me. I kept going back and forth between LSU and Arkansas. I finished, though, on Arkansas +3. I think this is the right play. And, guys, my final play of the Week 8 slate, the game of the week and possible contender for game of the year, Georgia at Texas, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. I'm going with the Bulldogs here, plus 5.5, and I'm using the same mentality I used last week with that Oregon-Ohio State game. These are two top 5 teams. They're pretty evenly matched for the most part. Two really good teams, and you're giving me 5.5 points for Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs. I got to take that all day long. I know they're on the road. I know Texas has been fantastic. Texas is the number 1 ranked team in the country for good reason. And I know. Texas' numbers on both offense and defense, they look a little bit better than Georgia's. I can attest to that. But this is still Kirby Smart. This is still Georgia. This is still a top 5 team, in the nation. You're giving me 5.5 points. I got to go ahead and take the Bulldogs here. There's even some sharp action here on the money line for Georgia, and it looks like the public's kind of split on who's going to come out here on top. It just kind of feels like an obvious fade spot for Texas. This is clearly the toughest game they played all season long. For Georgia, it is the toughest game, but they've also played Alabama, so they've had some challenges so far this year. Technically, when talking about strength of schedule, Texas had a tougher schedule, but I don't know. I mean, the Michigan win, obviously, I think is their most impressive win. Michigan, they're still top 25 ranked, but I think we can tell this Michigan team is not like what we thought they were going to be. Not as good as they were last year, obviously. And then after that, their toughest next win was against Oklahoma last week. They killed Oklahoma 34-3. I'm just not super impressed with Texas' schedule either, to be totally fair. I mean, they played some weak opponents there. The 2 tough games, quote-unquote tough games, Michigan and Oklahoma. I mean, still tough opponents, absolutely, but I don't know. I just don't know what to think about this one. I think both teams are pretty evenly tested. I think Georgia having that Alabama game in their back pocket. I mean, they played Auburn, they played Kentucky, they played Clemson. The data shows that Texas had a tougher schedule. I think Georgia's a little bit more battle-tested, to be totally fair. Having to play Clemson, having to play Alabama. Auburn and Kentucky, not exactly easy like lower-ranked teams. Again, just 5.5 points for Kirby Smart feels like too much. I got to go ahead and take the Bulldogs here, plus 5.5. And let's do a little giveaway, guys. If this pick hits, if Georgia covers plus 5.5, we'll do a little giveaway. Comment Bulldogs down below. And if Georgia covers, we'll give one lucky commenter a free $20 Amazon gift card. All I got to do, comment Bulldogs down below. And if they cover the spread at plus 5.5, we'll go ahead and pick one commenter to win a free $20 Amazon gift card. Guys, that does it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. Helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us, guys. Coming off a really strong week, let's see if we can't go ahead and have another strong performance this one. Let's get our overall record back up to 500 and get things going. The vibes are high. Let's keep the momentum going here, guys. Until next week, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy week 8 of college football.